WPBF 25 News, South Florida's trusted political leader.
You are seeing a lot of people that are just tired of this kind of say one thing and do another.
We can win. I'm very optimistic that if we do our job, we're going to win.
You have a great candidate in Florida. It's called the Republican candidate, Ron DeSantis.
But I am not going to bow down to the altar of political correctness. I'm going to not let the media smear me like they like to do with so many other people. So I'm certainly not going to take anything from Andrew Gillum.
You can vote for a politics that's decent and honest and lawful and tries to do right by people.
I'm not calling Mr. DeSantis a racist. I'm simply saying the racists believe he's a racist.
This is a WPBF 25 News Commitment 2018 Election Night Special. Here's Tiffany Kenny, Felicia Rodriguez, and Todd McDermott.
One of the most highly contested midterm elections in U.S. history is almost in the books. Millions of Americans showed up to the polls to cast their ballots, but this election goes well beyond today.
The outcome of these races could impact President Donald Trump's legislative agenda for the remainder of his presidency. It could foreshadow what's to come in the 2020 presidential election. Good evening. I'm Tiffany Kenny.
And I'm Felicia Rodriguez.
I'm Todd McDermott. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our election special. WPBF 25 News, your election headquarters. The polls are now closed across Florida, except for polling places in the Panhandle. Those close at 8 p.m. We'll be here with you all night long to help break down the races and the results. Let's take a look at some of the key races we're following right now in our state. In the race for governor, Andrew Gillum seeking to become Florida's first Democrat to be elected governor in Florida since Lawton Chiles in 1994, and the first black candidate to ever become governor. The Tallahassee mayor running against former Congressman Ron DeSantis, who left office to run for this office. He received a huge boost with his endorsement from President Donald Trump. In the race for U.S. Senate, incumbent U.S. Senator Bill Nelson seeking his fourth term. He's up against the incumbent governor, Rick Scott, a two-time winner of statewide office, both times by a single percentage point. We have WPBF 25 News reporters stationed all over the state, covering all the key races from Tallahassee to the Palm Beaches and all points in between. We're going to begin with Gianna Caserta, who's live in Orlando with the Ron DeSantis campaign. Gianna.
That's right. The doors opened here about an hour ago. We are here at the Rosen Center where Ron DeSantis will hold his election party tonight. Now, go ahead and take a look. You can see people have already started trickling in here. I would say about 100 people so far. It's hard to see from our perspective, but you can see some people starting to arrive. Now, Ron DeSantis cast his ballot outside of Jacksonville this morning and has been making a final push, making stops around the state. DeSantis thinks many Republicans are traditional day of voters and hopes support for him will surge today.
I worked hard. I mean, I think we really worked hard. I think we, did as much as can be done, and I'm happy with letting the chips fall where they may.
Close races with Republicans flip some seats, so we'll have to wait.
Now, this gubernatorial race is one of the most closely watched in the country. Former U.S. Representative Ron DeSantis running against Democratic Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum. Now, DeSantis, though, is a staunch Republican known for his strong support for President Donald Trump's policies. In fact, the president has visited Florida multiple times in an effort to boost DeSantis' campaign, and we will be here throughout the night as results come in, and we will be checking in with you throughout the night. For now, we're going to send things to my colleague Terry Parker, who is in Tallahassee. Terry.
Thank you, Gianna. We are here. We're on the campus of Florida A&M University, and this is where the Tallahassee Mayor Andrew DeSantis has decided to hold his campaign event outdoors, and we have just experienced a torrential downpour, so that's why we're standing over here right now, because the press area was somewhat rained out. We did catch up with Andrew Gillum this morning, and he was voting along with his wife and two of his small children, and he made a joking remark. He said, I tried to peek at her ballot and see who she was voting for, but she wouldn't let me, but she very wisely said, I voted for him. Let's take a listen to what Andrew Gillum has to say before the night of this historic election.
Us winning tonight, I think, will send a message to Mr. Trump and Mr. DeSantis as well, that the politics of hatred and of division, of separation, that they've come to an end.
what did come to an end was the press tent. Because of this torrential downpour, the tent was pretty much leaking from the top. It was in danger of collapse, and the media from around the country was shepherded into the nearby student commons. The rain has seemed to lessen up now, but that certainly put a damper on things. And the public is supposed to come out here and enjoy this outdoor event after the election results are in, because all eyes are on Andrew Gillum, and will he be able to turn back that red tide that's been in the governor's mansion for so many years? Back to you.
All right, Terry, thank you. And in the race for U.S. Senate, voters must decide whether to keep three-term incumbent Senator Bill Nelson or replace him with Governor Rick Scott. All the polls leading up to today show the two candidates pretty much in a dead heat.
Angela Rozier is standing by at Scott's campaign in Naples. We begin with our Ron Burke live in Orlando at Senator Nelson's campaign. Ron?
Yes, thank you. Bill Nelson has said he believes over his decades-long career in government, he's built up incredible trust with the voters, and he said as recently as this week, yesterday, he believes that trust will pay off big tonight, and he'll be sent back to Senate for a fourth term, is what he's seeking here. Now, today he had no public appearances, just spent the day with his family. Let me show you the privilege he took advantage of last week that Democrats have been urging their supporters to do in great numbers, that is, cast a vote. Senator Nelson did that last week here in Orlando. Now, earlier this evening here at the headquarters, I spoke with his senior campaign advisor moments after the advisor announced to the room that early results in Democrat-supported Hillsborough and Pinellas counties, two Democrat strong points, were ahead at that time of projections in favor of Bill Nelson.
I think we're encouraged. We've worked really hard, left it all on the field. He's, put out his message, and it's one that I think the voters are believing in.
Well, many of those voters are here in the room. They've begun filing in, supporters here. They're watching the television, rapt attention, I tell you right now, and they are cheering as the news favors Democrats in particular, as it favors Bill Nelson. And I think it's going to become a euphoric night here for sure in this, what is now feeling like a very small room with more people coming in here if things work out in their favor. That is the story right now from Orlando. Let me send it to Naples and Angela Rozier, who is covering the Rick Scott campaign. Angela.
That's right, Ron. No doubt that this is a very, very interesting race. You can see behind me Governor Rick Scott supporters starting to pour in here for his election night party here in Naples, but no one right now willing to call it just yet. Well, Governor Scott, though, he was busy today making the rounds, stopping at 5 cities, thanking his volunteers, urging people to get out and vote. And also, he was making a case for why he is the best person for the job of the U.S. Senate. He was also on appearance in a national television show today where he urged people again to get out and vote. He also told his viewers if they want lower taxes, vote for him. If you want a candidate who's going to go out and do work every day, vote for him. He has a plan to turn the country around, he says, and if he's elected to Congress, well, he's going to be a doer and not a taker. Now, Scott supporters will be watching the results as they trickle in here tonight. How long will that take? Well, we'll be here and bring it to you. Now, back to the studio.
Thank you. Next, voters came out in droves to cast their ballots in this midterm election. A look at the historic number of people who voted.
Plus, many of you have your questions about what the outcome of tonight's election can mean for the Trump administration. These gentlemen, our exclusive political analysts, are here to break that down for us and so much more. You're watching a WPBF 25 News Commitment 2018 special.
What makes a great morning?
How about South Florida's certified most accurate forecast to plan your day? Traffic alerts to get you to work and school on time.
Breaking news impacting your community, family, and day.
Plus, that special feeling when you find a morning team you enjoy spending time with. So, what makes a great morning?
You'll know it when you spend it with us.
Your morning, your team. Watch WPBF 25 News mornings every day.
Get the most for your valuables. Come to Treasure Hunt. No one treats you better. Visit treasurehuntjewelry.com for a location near you.
I can do more to lower my A1C.
Because my body can still make its own insulin.
And I take Trulicity once a week to activate my body to release it.
like it's supposed to. Trulicity is not insulin. It comes in a once-weekly, truly easy-to-use pen, and it works 24/7.
Trulicity is an injection to improve blood sugar in adults with type 2 diabetes when used with diet and exercise. Don't use it as the first medicine to treat diabetes or if you have type 1 diabetes or diabetic ketoacidosis. Don't take Trulicity if you or your family have medullary thyroid cancer, you're allergic to Trulicity, or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2. Stop Trulicity and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of a serious allergic reaction, a lump or swelling in your neck, or severe stomach pain. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Taking Trulicity with a sulfonylurea or insulin increases your low blood sugar risk. Common side effects include nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and decreased appetite. These can lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems.
To help lower my A1C, I choose Trulicity to activate my within.
Ask your doctor about once-weekly Trulicity.
AutoBuy, America's #1 Google-rated car buying company, makes it easy to sell your quality used vehicle. Bring your quality used vehicle to any AutoBuy location for our signature 20-minute offer to buy. Once accepted, you'll leave with money in hand. It's that easy. Over 150,000 people have visited AutoBuy, and we've purchased over $1.5 billion in vehicles. Don't sell your quality used vehicle to anyone. Visit AutoBuy and get the max. AutoBuy. WePayTheMax.com.
1% of Florida lawyers are board-certified experts in civil trial law. I am one of those experts. I used to work for the insurance companies and know how to get the money you deserve. And I'll be with you every step of the way. KB Wagner, we fight for justice.
Get the most for your valuables. Come to Treasure Hunt. No one treats you better. Visit TreasureHuntJewelry.com for a location near you.
Voting for your first time as a citizen, what does that feel like for you?
Well, for me, it's really important. I believe it's you like the country where you be, you have to vote, you have to choose and show this is important for you.
Today, voters across the state braved long lines, light rain, and the humidity to fulfill their civic duty. People patiently waited for the chance to make their voices heard. One woman, as you just heard, moved here from Colombia in 2012 and cast her very first ballot as an American citizen this morning. A record-breaking number of people voted before Election Day.
More than 5.2 million Floridians participated in early voting. Ted White has a breakdown of those early voting totals. Ted?
Good turnout across the board. Now, Floridians have cast more than 5.2 million early ballots. Let's take a look at the numbers by the counties. In Palm Beach County, more than 320,000 people took part in early voting or voted by mail. More than 50,000 people in Martin County cast their ballots early. In St. Lucie County, nearly 80,000 people early or mail-in ballots have been cast. In Okeechobee County, nearly 6,000 people cast a ballot by mail or early voting. And in Indian River County, more than 49,000 ballots have been cast. Now, when you add up the votes cast by Republicans and Democrats, Democrats edge out Republicans by almost 23,000 votes. But keep in mind, though, that is not an indication of how they voted, just the party that they're registered with. In the newsroom, Ted White, WPBF 25 News.
Ted, thank you. Coming up, the tight race for the congressional seat in Florida's 18th district, which represents the Treasure Coast and northern Palm Beach County.
We will have an update on where the numbers stand for Congressman Brian Mast and challenger Lauren Baer.
In my dream, I suddenly saw with clarity the world's best eyeglasses.
Aren't those from Stanton?
At Stanton Optical, get 2 pair for $59.95, plus a free eye exam.
Are you suffering from painful varicose veins? Do your legs ache, swell, or feel heavy? At United Vein Centers, we treat vein disease with non-invasive medical lasers that offer little to no downtime. The treatment is covered by Medicare and most health insurance.
Spending the day on my feet now? Not a problem.
Get back to a normal, pain-free life. Call today and schedule your free vein screening at one of our locations or visit us at UnitedVeinCenters.com.
At MetCare, you get a dedicated team of healthcare professionals that communicates with you at every step of the way. They'll listen and answer every question so you fully understand your care. They'll remind you about early preventive screenings and coordinate any additional appointments or tests. Experience primary care that is built around you. MetCare. Interested in becoming a new patient? Call us now.
I am not an organized person. He is a very organized person.
Our California Closet experience has been addicting.
We've really been able to create spaces together. California Closets is really good at listening to the needs of both of us. You can have a little traditional, you can have a little modern.
It was literally life-changing.
Who doesn't like a nice closet? I don't know.
It's true.
I do.
We're Jamie and Brad, and this is our California Closet story.
Breaking news and weather doesn't stop on weekends, and neither do we. Morning and night. Stay connected with live, local, late-breaking developments from Ron, Vanessa, Gianna, Shane, and Brittany. Only on WPBF 25 News Weekends.
I'm Scott Smith with Lytle, Ryder, Smith, Ivy, and Fronrath. South Florida is a great place to live and call home. For over 30 years, our firm has had the privilege of helping thousands of injured victims in Palm Beach County, the Treasure Coast, and beyond. We are more committed than ever in fighting for the rights of the injured. In the courtroom or in the community, we are always here to help. Call us at 1-800-4RIGHTS or visit us at foryourrights.com.
My mom washes the dishes before she puts them in the dishwasher. So what does the dishwasher do?
Cascade Platinum does the work for you. Pre-washing and removing stuck-on foods the first time.
Wow, that's clean.
Cascade Platinum.
You wouldn't go to Stanton, would you, Fergus? You don't think that Stanton's glasses are more beautiful than mine, do you? I am going to ask you one last time.
At Stanton Optical, get 2 pair for $59.95, plus a free eye exam.
Welcome back to our Commitment 2018 election special. Our exclusive political analysts, former U.S. Congressman Ron Klein, former Florida House Majority Leader Adam Hessner are here. They are the experts. First question to you, Ron. If Florida voters actually put Andrew Gillum, a Democrat, in the governor's mansion, what will be the driving factor in that?
Well, I think in part it is his uplifting message about, lifting everybody up, fighting hard. He obviously grew up in a home that encouraged that. He was very underprivileged in many ways. He was the first one to go to school, that kind of stuff. I think that's a positive message for people, and I think that's mixed up with obviously a very toxic environment that's led by the president right now, and a lot of rejection. It's not everybody, but a lot of rejection of that.
It is a long, long time since the state actually elected a governor, a Democrat, 1994. But let me go on the other side, Adam, for a moment, and Ron DeSantis. Very conservative member of the House of Representatives, a Freedom Caucus member, a budget hawk who went all in on the Trump agenda, got a key endorsement from the president. If Ron DeSantis is able to pull this off tonight, will it be because he went beyond that Trump base to take this?
Well, I think he's going to have to go beyond the Trump base in a midterm, but it's also going to be because his message was about keeping Florida on a positive track. Remember, we talked earlier, and you have Andrew Gillum running on a platform of raising taxes, which has never been done, a very progressive platform that we've never seen. And so this is really uncharted territory for a Democratic candidate running for governor statewide. But DeSantis is going to need to get the independent voters and, again, hold on to a lot of those Republicans who haven't been too pleased with the president over the last 2 years.
Ron, that whole idea of raising taxes, did it get through to voters that this gigantic tax increase that was talked about, obviously on the Republican side, Gillum favors, was really about corporate taxes? Do you think that message got through to these voters?
I think he tried to do that. I'm not sure it did, but I don't think at the end of the day that was the big issue. I mean, win or lose, I think it's going to be based on what we're talking about. DeSantis is a Trump acolyte and sort of those kinds of policies, and Gillum offers something totally different. Something like as you said, we haven't seen since Governor Charles.
Speaking of President Trump, now we know on the campaign trail the president has focused on with his rally crowds that this is a vote for me, vote as if I'm on the ballot. ABC News reported within the last hour, the White House is telling surrogates not to say that the midterm is a referendum on the Trump White House, the administration agenda. So I have to ask, and it's kind of a gimme, but does this midterm actually really come down to the almost 2 years of the Trump administration?
The White House should be talking to Donald Trump and telling him to close it down, because he's been the one out there both verbally and rhetorically, just positively saying all the time, this is about me. My vision, me personally, that's the whole deal.
Adam, you think there's maybe a regret that he doubled down on this?
No, I think it's a little bit hard to get the toothpaste back in the tube at this point, but the reality is that in a midterm cycle, presidents have lost seats around the country, and it was a huge referendum on Obama in 2010. We saw it again in 2006 against George W. Bush in that midterm. So it's not very often where an incumbent president of that party is able to hold on. People are looking for something different. So if that's the messaging, it might be difficult to get that across, but I don't think we're going to see anything out of the ordinary if they're seeing data right now that says that they're trying to not make this a referendum on the White House.
And remember, the Democrats need to flip 23 seats, no small feat, in order to actually take control of the House of Representatives. I'd ask you more about the U.S. Senate, but we could save that for the next half hour. Ron Klein, Adam Hassner will stay with us. Tiffany, let's go over to you.
Looking forward to hearing more from them. Todd, thank you. Florida voters are also deciding on 12 constitutional amendments.
Let's take a look at some of the most notable ones on the ballot. Amendment 3 transfers the power of gambling decisions from lawmakers to voters. Amendment 13 would end greyhound racing in the state.
There are 2 amendments on the ballot that deal with crime and justice. Amendment 4 would restore the voting rights of felons after they serve their time. Amendment 6 gives new rights to victims of crimes. And finally, a bundled amendment on environmental issues. Amendment 9 addresses offshore drilling and vaping. And one of the biggest congressional races is for District 18 seat, which covers the Treasure Coast and northern Palm Beach County.
Incumbent Republican Brian Mast is going up against Democrat Lauren Baer. We have crews covering both candidates. Ari Hyde is live in Stewart with the Mast campaign. Ari?
And as I talk to supporters of Congressman Brian Mast, they tell me one of the reasons why they really like him is he's just a regular guy. Well, take a look. That regular guy is right now here at his watch party. You can see he's taking photos. He stopped a little while ago, had a bite to eat. He's just been hanging out, talking to his supporters, taking photos like you saw. Mast arrived here at Flagler Place in Stewart to an ovation from this crowd. He shook a lot of hands. He hugged a lot of friends. And he just seemed to have settled in for the night. We caught up with the congressman as he arrived for an exclusive interview. He spent the day talking to voters at the polls, and he says he feels very confident about this race. Just why are you going to win this race tonight?
Promises kept. I think that's the most simple way to say it. I came into this before I was ever sworn in, and I had a plan of attack for what I was going to do on water and veterans. And then I had the opportunity to go out there and execute it, and we succeeded. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, we had the president sign into law something that I said I was going to work on, a bill known as the Water Resources and Development Act. The president signed into law a couple of things that I put in there, one of them being a reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee, another one being the redo of the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule. I told folks I was going to open up an office in the VA hospital. I did that. It took a year to accomplish, but we got it over the finish line. Now we got that going, and this is what we do. We've had the opportunity to bring to fruition those things that we promised we were going to do.
And back here live now, I think there are about 100 people or so in this room right now, and I think the congressman has taken a picture with pretty much every single one of them. There are about 5 or 6 people still waiting to go right now. Mast told me he very much appreciates everybody being here. He appreciated the ovation he got when he first showed up tonight. He says he wants to thank each and every person for supporting him. That's the story here on the Republican side. Now, for the Democratic side of this race, let's join my colleague Shane Wright. He is with the Lauren Baer campaign in Palm Beach Gardens. Shane?
That's right, Ari. We are on the Lauren Baer watch right now. She hasn't showed up yet. We are expecting her here any minute now. The people started showing up around 7 o'clock or so. All eyes are sure to be on the monitor behind me when the results start rolling in. We saw some smiles right around 7 o'clock. We saw some hugs, and we'll see that will continue into the night. A lot to take in here at the Embassy Suites in Palm Beach Gardens. Baer, though, made several stops across the district after she voted this morning at Gardens Presbyterian with her wife and her daughter. Some believe she does have an uphill battle to take down the incumbent Brian Mast in a district really that has been red for a while now and supported Republican presidential nominees in 2012 and 2016, but that was by single digits, so the door is open for Baer. I spoke to her campaign chair earlier this evening and asked her how Lauren Baer has changed since the beginning of the campaign. Listen.
She has grown more confident, but at the end of the day, she's always been the kind of candidate you want to work for, someone who really cares about the people of this district, who wants to represent them, and is in it all for the right reason. So it's been an honor to work for her, and I'm excited for her to win tonight.
And this would be Bayer's first political nomination. Again, we're expecting her. Maybe we can grab her here in a couple minutes, but they just turned on the music right around 7 o'clock. The first song they played was by Beyonce, Run the World. The lyrics in those songs, who runs the world? Girls. Back to you, Tiffany and Felicia.
We're familiar with the lyrics.
I think we may one night have sung that.
Perhaps.
Probably. All right. Well, next, the stakes are high for both parties as polls close across the country. Who will hold the power in Washington after the results are in?
How many seats Democrats would have to flip in the House and the Senate to gain control of Congress? We're going to have much more on the races nationwide when we come back.
Schedule your annual AC or heating system tune-up today with ARS Rescue Router for only $19. But do it fast. This outstanding $19 seasonal tune-up offer ends soon. Visit arsverobeach.com.
Call ARS and Rescue Router.
Trust is definitely earned. After covering South Florida for 20 years, I feel a real connection with our viewers. Every community is different. Each has its own unique concerns, culture, and what's important to them. We think about that every night when prioritizing the breaking news and the weather stories impacting all of our families.
Watch WPBF 25 News at 5, 6, and 11. South Florida's most trusted team for live, local, late-breaking coverage.
Do you need a new heating and cooling system as the weather gets colder? Call the experts at Aspen Air Conditioning, where you can instantly save up to $1,600. Act now, and we'll even add a free Nest thermostat and Nest Protect smoke and carbon monoxide alarm. You can even have this brand new system for payments as low as $83 per month. For your new heating and cooling system, call the experts now. Aspen Air Conditioning, heating and cooling, making it work, making it right. Visit aspenac.com.
As a home instead caregiver, for everything that I give, I get so much in return. Join our family of Home Instead caregivers and help make a world of difference. Home Instead Senior Care. Apply today.
Strong storm, the trees are down and the lights are out.
No air conditioning, no refrigerator.
I get how strong the storm was, but I need my power back.
We get it. We don't just work for FPL. We're customers too.
After a storm hits, restoring power safely and as quickly as possible is our #1 priority. That's why we never stop preparing. We have the best resources in place so we can be ready to respond in good weather and bad.
Storm season is here. We're ready. Are you?
Today,
we have even better access
to expert heart care right here at Cleveland Clinic, Florida.
Backed by advanced technology,
our team has decades of experience caring for all matters of the heart.
From the routine to complex procedures and transplants.
Call today. We are here to care for you and your heart.
Anytime.
Anywhere.
Find your way to the best care at clevelandclinicflorida.org.
98% of us don't get enough omega-3s, which is why Mega Red Advanced 4-in-1 packs more omega-3 power into one small soft gel. It supports your heart, brain, eyes, and joints. Mega Red.
Call the experts at ARS Rescue Router and save up to $1,600 on a new heating and cooling system with payments as low as $83 per month and a free Nest Home package. Visit arsverobeach.com.
Call ARS and Rescue Router.
Well, as we've been telling you, a lot is at stake for both the Democrats and the Republicans in tonight's election.
Right now, the Republicans have control of both the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, but that could change.
This is the current balance of power in the Senate. The Republicans have 51 seats, Democrats have 47, and independents have 2. 35 seats in the Senate are up for grabs in this election, but the map favors the GOP, which could pick up some seats.
But all 435 seats in the House are up for re-election, and Republicans appear to be playing defense in that chamber as the Democrats seek to flip at least 23 seats and take control of the House. If the Democrats do that, it could impact President Donald Trump's legislative agenda for the next 2 years as the Democrats take control over committees. It could also mean a flurry of new investigations targeting the Trump administration.
Our Commitment 2018 coverage does not stop here.
WPBF 25 News is your election headquarters. We will have much more from the candidates' campaigns when we come back.
Get the most for your valuables.
Come to Treasure Hunt. No one treats you better. Visit treasurehuntjewelry.com for a location near you.
Breaking news and weather doesn't stop on weekends, and neither do we. Morning